Hello, it's me, Camilla Tominey, Associate Editor of the Telegraph, and we're at the conference centre in Manchester for the Tory Party Conference. So this is where it all starts. It kicked off earlier today. There's lots of stands. The whole place is full of Tories. Outside, as you can imagine, there are people shouting, Tories come, Tories out, Rishi out. That's always the scene in Manchester. It's a cosy welcome. But here are lots and lots of Conservatives basically selling their wares and discussing the future of the party. And I think the phrase for this conference is very much make or break. We say that every time we come to a Tory Party conference, seemingly in the last 5 years, because we've had such a change of leadership in such a kind of febrile time. But I think for Rishi Sunak, he's come out on the broadcast round this morning quite punctually, following on from his climate climb down, which we think has done quite well in the polls. He's managed to narrow the gap to just 10 points, with Labour ahead by 10 points according to opinion. He'll be buoyed by that, so certainly in throwing some red meat to the Conservatives here, he's doing better. But again, you've got problems with the party being somewhat disunited. Liz Truss and a load of Tory MPs on the right have put together this letter saying to the Chancellor, under no circumstances must you put taxes up, we won't support it. That letter's been signed by 31 quite significant big hitters, former Secretaries of State, a former Prime Minister in Truss, Priti Patel is on there, Ian Duncan-Smith, former Tory leader. And at the end of the day, that caucus could overturn any budget. So if they don't like what Jeremy Hunt comes up with in autumn, it's going to be problematic. Equally, I think Rishi's speech on Wednesday is going to be key critical. He is behind Labour, that's no secret. There's lots of people talking about 13 years of Tory rule. He's going to have to pull some rabbits out of the hat, because when you walk into this conference centre, it puts up on a screen his 5 big deliverables: halving inflation, stopping the boats, and everything else that he's pledged. But speaking to some Tory MPs, they're worried about delivery. Is he going to be able to deliver what he's promised by the end of the year? And if he can't, then people are going to start asking, what's the point of him? So once again, we've got the Conservative Party not so much being a nest of singing birds, but a nest of vipers, with people having a go on the right and wanting him to be a bit more Thatcherite in his approach. And then you've got Sunak and indeed Hunt as Chancellor, hemmed in by our economic circumstances, worried that the government's been spending too much, not able to promise tax cuts because they haven't got enough money. And of course you've got the Labour Party positioning themselves as the party of economic competence. So there's all to play for the next 4 days. They'll want to avoid any kind of calamity like Theresa May's disastrous speech. They're certainly happy that there's no Boris factor here. The absence of the blonde bombshell is useful to Rishi Sunak. Certainly don't want him to be a sideshow. So it's just going to be safe and steady on one hand to make sure there's no calamity. But he can't carry on with this kind of middling centrist approach. The net zero move has taught him something, that if he does push and he's bold and brave, he can win back Tory support. We're talking about those Tories that are a bit disaffected, they don't know what's going on with the party, they don't like the ousting of Boris and Truss, and they're standing back and waiting to see what happens next. It's those voters who the Prime Minister and the ministers here this week are going to have to convince to come back into the Conservative camp.